All right, the key to making your clean storyboard is to set up your files correctly. So I have the full resolution image here at 350 pixels per inch. And I have flattened all my frames into layers, right? So I have fully 100% opaque normal layers now for each frame. Now what I can do is actually reduce my quality. I know none of that makes sense, but go to image size, and I want it to be 8 inches by 8 inches by 100 pixels per inch, just like we did for our GIF. But the difference is it's not a graphic interchange format file. This is still a PSD file, so it still has millions of colors. The reason we're reducing the quality is because we don't need our finished storyboard to have 9 different full resolution images stacked up. We're not printing this on a billboard, right? So our quality is still pretty good, and all the colors are there. But they're all flattened now into these frames. So now to make your storyboard, you have to figure out what is your center moment. And so the center moment is when the storm is at its highest and the bird is really soaking wet. And I can kind of look at my different frames here, which now correspond directly to individual layers. And I can say, what is that moment before the sun starts to brighten it all? So maybe that frame right there. So number 29, that's going to be my center frame. So around this frame, I'm going to grow my canvas. So I go to image canvas size, and I'm going to make it 30 inches wide by 40 inches tall, and keep my center in the center. So it's going to grow evenly around my center frame here. This is because my image is 8 by 8 inches. If yours is like 8 by 10 inches, then maybe I would go 40 inches wide and 40 inches tall. Or if it was 12 by 8 inches, I might go 50 inches wide by, you get the idea. Now I can hit F0 to keep it all on the screen. And now I use my guides using my rulers and my move tool. And my guides will automatically stick to the edges of my frames. This is all of my frames stacked up, all 71 here in the middle, like a deck of cards. On my very bottom layer, I'm going to add a layer and drag it underneath frame 1 and then fill it with white. Not because I need to, but just so it will help me see everything clearly. And you see how that adds it to every animation frame as well. Though I don't really need the animation frames anymore, except as a way of kind of seeing where in the story certain things happen. Now I'm going to turn on my grid, which I can do with Command apostrophe, or I can go up to View, Show, Grid, where it shows you all the shortcuts too. And I'm going to do a 1/2 inch border between everything and drag my guide down using the grid. That's why I like to use even inches, like 8 by 8 or 8 by 10 for my storyboards. Okay, and now I can turn off my grid, and this is where all my different layers will go, all my different frames. So now I can go to the beginning of this story. Maybe frame 1, I just select that layer, I use my move tool, but I'm going to turn off auto select, and I can deal from underneath the deck. Put frame 1 up there. But then maybe I'll skip a few. Frame 5. That there. Frame 9. I have the potential to use any of my frames. There we go. So that should kind of show me my camera move. I don't like how high that gets. So maybe instead of this one, turn that one off. I'll try frame 3 instead. Yeah, or honestly, maybe camera moves just aren't that interesting. So I'll replace frame 1 with frame 3. Then get to frame 7. Let's see what frame 7's like. Yeah, so we introduce it that way. And then maybe instead of frame 9, I use frame 12. Yeah, then we have kind of more mist coming in. So that's the beginning of my scene. You know, moving from a different part in the background, introducing the bird, and the bird starting to move. So you can see that the beak is opening, and the body position is a little bit different. And his eye is closed here, and his beak is open, and his wings are more angular and outstretched. Though the reason we animate is often because the movement's more visible through animation than through still images. Okay, then after that, after frame 7, or frame 12 rather, what's the next step I want to do? Maybe frame 16? No, I think I want something with darker clouds than that. So maybe frame 18. Yeah, you see how it starts to darken? Big downpour. Then the sun starts to come out. And so now I actually get past, well, let me see really quick. What would frame 25 look like? Yeah, it's too dark. What would frame 23 look like? Now I think I'm going to do this frame 18 up here instead. Now, except that the bird's in the same position. All right, so I stand by what I did. Don't need 23. And now when you start to do frames that are on after your center frame, they'll show up on top, and you'll deal from the top of the deck. But make sure you select the frame. So now it's frame 31. And it's just a different type of storytelling. So it darkens, it pours, the rain clouds start to move away. And then I think I want to introduce the dinosaur. So this frame now, that goes here. Again, you're using your sketch to help you figure out how to tell the story through your finished storyboard. Oh, that's a nice frame right there. That's the movie poster. Huge opening box office. Just makes me laugh. All right. So I could go a few different ways, right? But I think that kind of tells the story the best. And it doesn't, your storyboard does not need to loop, right? So my animation loops and it kind of clears the scene and it goes back to this. But my storyboard should just tell the main moments clearly. So that if I'm not able to view the animation, this is a preview of it. Okay, now I'm going to save this with all of my frames, but only the ones I'm showing turned on and placed. I'm just hiding my guides using Command semicolon. I'm going to save this with the white background as Carl Assignment 5 Final Storyboard. So it's not your storyboard sketch, it's your final storyboard. And I save it first as a PSD. And then I save it to the desktop as a JPEG. And that's the third thing I upload. And again, you want it to be under 5 megabytes. I like to have the extra space at the top and bottom. It prints nicer that way, and it kind of looks nice in a portfolio that way. But as long as you have even spacing between your different final storyboard frames, whether it's landscape format, portrait format, I'm okay with it. The last thing I'm going to do before I save my final storyboard again is I'm just going to get rid of all of these, right? Because that can happen. So I have to select all my frames that are programmed for something else besides my center frame, which is where I set up the whole scene, right? And I have to remove them from my animation timeline by dragging them down to the trash. So you only have one in your timeline, because this is not an animated file. This is just your storyboard, and you don't want to accidentally slip and lose your work. Very good. All right, we're all done. So how do we upload them, and how do they look? And what are some of the pitfalls? So these are the three components that we upload. I will do it into my instructor documents, instructor demonstrations file in the class photo bucket. The only one that's sometimes a little tricky and gives you problems is the GIF animation. And that's why you just want to make sure it's fewer than 50 megabytes. So if I right-click on mine and say Get Info, mine is only 13 megabytes, so I should have no problem. But if I had 200 frames instead of 71 frames, it would probably be too big, and I'd have to shrink it even more, maybe to 6 by 6 inches by 100 pixels per inch, which you can do after the fact. You can open up the GIF, shrink the image size, and then re-output it as a GIF without having to go into Photoshop, the Photoshop version. Okay, instructor demonstrations, you're going to load it up into your assignment folder, say upload, bring them all in. Now remember, even if you don't have these done, so not that you think they can just be improved, but if you just don't have them finished, you can always upload your sketch as a placeholder and then still be able to resubmit the project for a new grade. But this is how you'll title them. Your storyboard sketch goes first, so that's Carl 1. Your GIF animation goes second, so that's your name and 2. And then your final storyboard is third. And then if you label them the right way in the folder, they'll work out. I have to organize mine, but it's your responsibility to get something into the right folder by midnight tonight of the critique day on the course outline with your name on it. So titled with your name. All right, let's see, animations.
Well, the critique is today, right?
Yes, we're going to critique in class, but you still have, in order to be able to resubmit, you have until midnight on critique day. But of course, I prefer that you have something up for the class critique, even if it's just partial. Let's see. I'll stick them all right here. And that's it. Finally done.